Hello and welcome to my class, Inktense Pencils for Beginners. Have you always wondered what Inktense pencils are all about? Are they just fancy pencils with ink in them? Or you may never have heard of Inktense pencils before until today, and you're super curious about what these pencils are all about. And if the answer to any of these questions and beyond is yes, then you're at the right place, because this class is perfect for you. We're going to start the class off by quickly going through what Inktense pencils are, their components, how they work, and what characteristics they have. We're going to then quickly move on to the class supplies, and we'll go through all the items that you're going to be needing for this class. And then, a matter of excitement to announce, I will be giving some free worksheets that are available from my published workbook on Inktense pencils. So if you've already got this book, then that's great, but if you haven't, not to worry, because few pages from this workbook will be made available absolutely free, which you can download, and I will indicate to you when you need to use them throughout this class. We will begin by looking at the different application methods on how to apply Inktense pencils, and we will explore the various ways that this can be done to produce really interesting and lovely effects. We will then work through one of the sheets on blending from my book that again is available for download, that we can work out how to create beautiful blends with colour and work alongside the lovely little features that you have on this worksheet. And then once you've done the application methods and the blending exercise worksheet, then you'll be ready to start exploring that knowledge and really implementing it in a beautiful pattern, which again I'm going to be making available from my book free for you to download and use. And then finally we will explore a really interesting technique using these pencils to produce a step-by-step sketch, where we will look at different methods of how to create wonderful effects in creating sketches, whether it be from real life studies or whimsical in my own personal whimsical style. And once you've completed all the class exercises and the complete step-by-step sketch, you will be able to accumulate all those skills and those techniques that you've learnt and really go ahead and unleash that creativity of yours in producing your very own beautiful class project. So what you're waiting for? Grab yourself a nice drink, get yourself a nice treat, get comfy, get your Inktense pencils ready, and let's get started with the class. Oh, that's a good one, that, isn't it? Nice bit of ginger and turmeric, fantastic, and a hint of lemon in that. What a great combination. Nothing like a nice, lovely ginger tea on a cold, windy day. So I think we're ready to start the class. So welcome back. I was just enjoying my ginger tea as usual. It's an absolutely horrible day today, so much wind, you can probably hear it in the background, and that's why I've got my nice lovely soft Sherpa coat on over here. So let's get back to the class. Okie dokie, now we're gonna do the exciting stuff, so I better get my tea out of the way. Okie dokie, so let's get our attention onto the table now. So you can see over here, I've got some nice little cutout pieces of paper on the middle of my table, and this is my lovely mixed media paper that I love to use with these Inktense pencils, and I've just cut them in a nice convenient small little shape like this. So get your paper ready. I'm going to just take a sheet of this, move the others out of the way, so just a nice little sheet of mixed media. And for this demonstration now, where we're looking at the application methods, I'm going to use this lovely colour that I've got here. This one is called Sea Blue, and the colour code is So if you have this in your set, then grab hold of it if you want to follow with the same colour. And if you notice, my pencil is nice and sharp. That's very important. Ensure that you keep your pencils nice and sharp, because it just makes for better control when you're applying them to your lovely drawings or your colouring in sessions, whatever you use them for. Having a nice sharp point is absolutely fantastic, and it will really enhance your experience with using these Inktense pencils. So grab your pencil, make sure it's nicely sharpened, and another thing, just to make sure that you're using a good quality sharpener, I use this electric sharpener here, which I've got quite accustomed to over the last maybe couple of years. I never used to use electric sharpeners, but there you go. We all advance, don't we, at some point in time, and I've never gone back. So I tend not to really use my manual ones anymore, only unless I'm using specific pencils. But get yourself a good sharpener. I actually forgot to mention that in the supplies, so add that into your supply list. So for the sharpener, just give them a nice little sharpen. Let's move that out of the way, and we can start now. So the first application method I'm going to go through is the dry first method. So we're going to look at the dry first. So I'm just going to hold the pencil as it is, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a nice lovely little swatch in the middle on the top section of the paper. So just like that over there, and my paper's moving all over the table, isn't it? Let's sort that out. Let's fix it onto the table. Okie dokie, I've got my paper fixed on really nicely with my lovely little blue tack, and let's continue. So just with the pencil, all I'm going to do is add a nice little swatchy swatch over here, just going up and down using the sharp tip of that pencil, just applying that lovely colour pigment onto the surface, just like you would do with a normal coloured pencil. And you can see that the colour is so nice and vibrant, nice pigment going on there, and it just looks great that as it is. You could just leave it like that, couldn't you? But we're going to take it to the next stage. We want to explore the kind of versatility of these wonderful pencils. So just like that, a nice little swatch over there, and I think that's about enough. So what we've done there is we've just got an initial layer of dry colour, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in over here at this bottom part of this paper, and I'm just going to go ahead and do exactly what I did with the one on top. So just using this upward and downward motion here to add this lovely little swatch of colour. So just quickly getting that down, a couple of layers in the same direction, and that's looking fantastic. And then again, just a little bit more on the top so that they look similar. Just make sure that they look similar so that we can compare and contrast the results. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the direction. So I'm going to go in a diagonal direction on the bottom swatch. So just like this, I'm basically just adding another layer just to intensify the actual pigment that's on the paper, so that we can see what difference we get with the intensity and the amount of actual colour when we go on dry first. So just like this, in a diagonal fashion, just adding a couple of layers of that pigment, and I think that's looking quite nice. You can see on the screen we've got a darker swatch there and a slightly lighter one there. So just going to give it a bit of a blow. Fantastic stuff. So I'm going to put my pencil to the side now, and now I'm going to get my lovely watercolour brush. So I'm going to be using my favourite brush here. This is the Silver Black Velvet brush. This is a number 8. I find that this size is absolutely perfect for applying water onto Inktense. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to give it a nice drench in my water like this, and then I'm going to tap on the edge of my kind of container there to make sure that the excess is off. And then let's just get that out of the way. Now you can see that we've got a really nice drench going there on that brush, and I think that is pretty much good for this first application process. What you don't want is, you don't want the water to be dripping off the brush so that you get water all over the place. Just get the bristles nicely wet, and then they can hold in that moisture. So let's go in to this first swatch here, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly glide that brush which releases the water over this left edge, and you can see as soon as that water touches the beautiful dry pigment, it starts melting away, giving us this wonderful ink-like effect, and that's it. So I'm not going to over drench it, I'm just going to leave this section dry so that we can see what it looks like dry and wet. And then again, I'm going to give my brush a nice little rinse over here so that we maintain the same amount, and then just dip it in again and then give it a nice little shaky for the excess so that we have a similar amount of water, because water control is always important when we're using watercolor mediums like these Inktense pencils or just normal water. And that's about the same. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to do exactly what I did on top. So just like that, just going to make sure that the water touches the dry bits onto that swatch, and you can see that it's just melting away as soon as it touches it. So get the brush out of the way now, and you can see as this is still wet, we've got a really lovely intensity of colour, a lot more in the bottom swatch where we had the extra layer, a lot less in the top, but nevertheless it's still very, very intense and beautiful. So let's wait until this dries and then we can see what the final results look like. Okie dokie, now our lovely swatches are fully dry and you can see that they look absolutely fantastic. So what you got to remember with this is that once these are fully dried after you've applied them, so once you've applied the pigment dry and once you put the water on top and it's completely dry, they now become permanent. So if you add water on top to try maneuvering it around, you won't be able to do this, and this is absolutely great when you want to add and build very subtle layers just like you would do in normal watercolors. So that's the results that we get with the dry first and then adding water. You can see it's a completely different look from what it looks like when it's just dry, and then depending on the intensity of the layers you're going to get slightly different results, but it looks absolutely brilliant. So give that a try with your colour Inktense pencils and see what results you get. And another way to actually go ahead and use the colours that you have in your set is to do a colour swatch. So that's one of the first things that I tend to do. So I'm also going to give you a lovely downloadable colour swatch sheet that you can use. So I'll just show you in my book over here. So just grab hold of my book. So with the book that I have, this is the digital downloadable book that you can purchase separately. Now if you already have this, that's fantastic because you can use this really to expand on this class. But if you don't have this, then I will also provide you with a nice little swatch sheet from this book. So I've got it usually at the back over here. So I've got a nice swatch of these coloured pencils that I've got from my set of 24. Now you might not have the set of 24, so these colours and these codes might not be relevant for you. However, if you have a look on these, I've got each swatch as a dry swatch and a wet swatch. So you'll be able to actually, let's get a zoom in on this. Quick little zoomy zoom in on this. So just like we did with our exercise over here, we've got a wet swatch and then we've got a dry one. With the sheet that you'll be able to print, you can just do this, print it off, and you'll easily have these lovely little boxes and the relevant color code that you can write in, and that will just give you a nice little reference of all the colors that you have. Now if you have the 24 swatch sheet, then I will provide you with the 24 set swatch just like I've got with the actual names on them. If you haven't got the 24 set and you're thinking, oh, this doesn't really work for me, then don't worry, I've got you covered. I'm also going to be giving you a blank swatch sheet so that you can actually go ahead and build in the colors that you have and write in the names as you go along while you're building your collection of Inktense pencils. So that's a bonus that we didn't mention at the beginning, but I've just decided that I'm going to give it to you. So I'm going to give you this swatch sheet of the 24 and a blank one just because you are fantastic people and I want you to enjoy this experience. So let's get back on to the second application method. We've done the first one, let's move on to the next one. Okay, welcome back. Let's now look at the second technique. So on my screen, I've got another lovely piece of paper, just like I had before. On the left-hand side, I've got the previous technique that we did. So I'll just keep that on the left for us to have a quick reference to. So that was the dry first technique application method. Now we're going to do the wet first technique application method. Not complicated at all. So for this one, we're going to have the same color pencil that I used before, so I'll just put that to the side because we're going to use that after. So what we need to do is we need to grab hold of our water. So I'm just going to give my brush a nice little rinse there, and I'm going to make sure that I've got a decent bit of water on the bristles of the brush. That's looking good. And now it's just a case of applying our water to the paper first, and therefore that's how we get that wet first method name. And so we're just applying our lovely water onto the paper to create a bit of a swishy swatch. So just like that, that's about enough. Let's quickly move to the pencil now. You want to make sure that you work quickly with this, otherwise the water's going to dry and then we won't be able to get the effect that we're after. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to get our pencil as it is, and we're going to go ahead and just create a swatch over that water. And you can see that as soon as that pencil touches the water, you're getting this lovely ink flow of pigment, and that just looks fantastic, doesn't it? So you can see the water on the top section here has dried out fairly quickly. So if we move on to this section where we've got more water, you can see we're getting much more of a melty, inky effect, just like that. Now just look at that, going backward and forward. I'm not using much pressure at all. I'm just letting it just glide over that water, and you can see we can get this wonderful vibrant electric effect, isn't it? Fantastic that. And that's it. So all we're doing there is just adding our dry pencil on top of the water solution on our paper. Now do remember, try not to use too much water, otherwise you're going to have all sorts of funky designs. But what you can do is, with this technique, if we just get some more water, so I'm just going to get some water on the brush, if we just have a wet area here, so just a dot of water down here, maybe a dot of water down here, and another one here, so just 3 random dots of water with some space in between. If we do a little squiggle, you can see we're going to get different results. So just like that, a little squiggle of my line, and we get different results. Now do remember, when you apply this dry pencil onto the water, you're going to get the actual end of that pencil, the tip of the pencil. Let's see if we can get a zoom in on this. So you can see over here that the actual tip of the pencil gets worn down really quickly, so do bear that in mind when you're using this technique, because if you press too hard onto the water, that tip is going to get melty and it's going to create all sorts of kind of funky tip point shapes at the end of your pencil, so do bear that one in mind. But again, it just works really nice doing little squiggles, and you can get this gorgeous textured inky effect, and I absolutely love it. We're going to explore more of that when we come to doing our little sketch later on. So that was technique number 2, wet first application method. So we've done 2 techniques, we've got 1 more to do, and then we can start doing even more fun stuff. So let's move on to that one next. Okay, welcome back. Now we've got our final technique of the application method. So on the screen here again, I've got another sheet of lovely paper, and I've moved my other techniques onto the left so that we can still see them. So on the top here we've got the dry first method, then on the bottom we've got the wet first method, and it's still a little bit wet because I haven't waited for it to dry because I'm so excited. So let's just carry on with this final method, and this method I'm calling pick from a swatch method. So simple words, nice and easy to understand, and we can go ahead and do this. So I'm going to use the same color again. I'm just going to make sure that the tip is dry. So if your kind of tip of your pencil is a little bit moist, wait until it dries, and then maybe just give it a little scratch on a blank piece of paper like this, and I can see there that's just lovely dry pigment, beautiful stuff. And then just move that one to the side. What we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, we're going to create the swatch that we're going to pick from. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to create a nice little dry swatch of pigment just like this. I'm not going to use too much. I don't want to kind of spend too much time on this method because it's just very simple and easy to understand and use. So just like this, adding in a bit of pigment, then maybe going in a different direction just to make sure that we have another layer, just to create a nice intense solution of color. Can move that now to the side, and now all I'm going to do is grab hold of my water, give it a nice rinse on the brush there, just like that, and then I'm going to go straight into this swatch, just like that, with a nice decent amount of water. I'm going to effectively just melt this dry pigment away so that we have a swatch of ink. So look at that, a nice little swatch of ink. And now what I can do is, with the same brush, all I'm going to do is lift that ink that I've created in this solution and then just apply it onto the dry paper there. Look at that. Beautiful, isn't it? It's just like you're using normal watercolor, just like that, picking off that wet melted solution and just applying it onto our lovely dry paper. So just like this, whatever we have left over here, just going to go ahead, maybe just create some squiggly wiggly lines, and you can see we have this wonderful, clean, lovely effect, pretty much just watercolor in this ink consistency and look. So that's it. So let's just move the brush out of the way. So we've got this wonderful third technique, and for the application methods, these are the three that I'm going to stick to. So that's it for the application methods. Let's just now have a look at all of them side by side. Okay, so on the screen now we've got all of our lovely application methods. On the left here we started off with the dry first method, worked out really nice with a couple of different layer levels, and then we moved on to the second method, which was the wet first method, and then we went on with our dry pencil. Fantastic results there, very different from the first one. And then finally we moved on to the third method, which we called the pick from the swatch method. So that was the third one, where you have the most cleanest and most watercolor like effect, like you would with normal watercolor paint. So give these three methods a go. Again, use different colors, use the same colors like I've done, and see what effects you get. This will just act as a nice warm-up exercise for you to move on and start really expressing yourself with this fantastic medium. So that's it for the application methods. Let's now move on to the next one. Thanks for watching the lesson from my full class that is available on Skillshare, and will also be available maybe on Patreon at a later stage. So do subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hopefully you would have learned something from it and it encouraged you in this wonderful world of Inktense Pencils. So again, if you haven't already followed me on Skillshare, or if you haven't got a subscription to Skillshare, then click on the link below where you will have free access for a certain amount of time, only for a limited time, where you can watch the complete class, you can download the resources and do class projects and really expand in this fantastic medium. So thank you so much for your time, thank you for your help and support, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.